Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Timira Theory Podcast. This is a podcast that celebrates the accomplishments and victories of people from all walks of life, hosted by Timira and Hudson. So today we have here, you could say your name.
Jason Walker.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So today I have about 20 questions for you for this interview. The first one being, what is the name of your company?
I work for a company by the name of United Road Services. We are the largest car hauler in North America, which means we transport more vehicles in North America than any other company. Yeah.
And what is your job?
That's a really good question. I wonder that quite often. So I get the pleasure of serving as the Chief Operating Officer for the company, which means that all things operational, all things on how we do what we do every day, falls under my responsibility to make sure that it happens.
And can you explain? So your job is like COO? Like Chief Operating Officer. So, can you explain what a Chief Operating Officer does?
Sure. As a Chief Operating Officer, you do a lot of things, and you get involved in a lot of things. So, primarily, my responsibilities are to make sure that we service our customers in a manner in which they expect, but we do so as cost effective in a most cost effective manner possible. So that's what I'm really trying to do every day, is to live out our mission as a company, which is to be the, I'll say, supplier of choice, or be the company that our customers want more than any others, and we achieve that by delivering their cars on time and without any damages. So my job is to make sure that I'm working with our team of drivers, our team of managers, our team of mechanics, to make sure that we are doing exactly what we said we're going to do, which is to deliver those cars on time and without damage. So that's what I get involved in. I do a lot every day, thinking about strategy and what we need to do to be successful in 6 months. Or even 5 years from now.
And what's the difference between a CEO and a COO?
Good question. And so the CEO is really the boss of everything, and the COO reports into the CEO. The CEO is responsible for many things, operations being one, but also has responsibility for sales, has responsibility for our finance department. But really what a CEO does is they're responsible for making sure that the organization has what it needs to be successful, and to think about the strategic direction of the company. Where do we want to go as a company, and to begin steering us in that direction.
Okay, so how do those two jobs interact?
I tell people oftentimes, my job is really simple. There's two things that I have to do in my job. Number one is listen to my people that work for me and give them what they need to be successful. So that's number one, is to serve the success of those that work for me. And then the second part of my job is to serve the success of my CEO, and to make my CEO as successful as possible. So those are the two things that I try to do on a daily basis. As far as the interaction goes, while I am responsible for all of our operations, it is the largest part of our business, and probably the most visible part of our business. And so what I try to do, even though I'm responsible for all of that, I try to keep our CEO informed as to what's happening, and also give our CEO the opportunity to weigh in on decisions that need to be made, as well as giving the CEO my opinion on those decisions. And then ultimately, we collaborate and come up with what we feel is the best solution, and then we move forward with doing that. So in terms of interaction with the CEO, my job is really to help the CEO be successful, and to live out and to execute their vision.
Okay, so when I do these podcasts, I kind of try to ask questions for people who might be looking into the profession of the person I'm interviewing. So these next few questions are kind of like that. So this one is, where did you go to college?
So I went to the University of Pennsylvania, which is, I went to the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania, which, University of Pennsylvania is one of 8 Ivy League schools, based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
What kind of education is involved to become a COO?
Good question, and I want to back up a little bit, because in addition to going to the University of Pennsylvania, I also got my master's degree from Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia. So the education that's involved with being a COO, I'll say first and foremost, it is wise to have an undergraduate degree. That said, there are certainly some people that are very successful in this job, and jobs similar to mine, that don't have an undergraduate degree. However, it does help. And then after that, it's really about experiences. I'll tell you this. I have been in the working world, or my career has spanned 26 years. So I've been working for 26 years, ever since getting out of college. And my wife and I made the decision that we would make whatever sacrifices we needed early on to be as successful as possible. Okay. And those sacrifices meant that in our first 5 years of marriage, we moved 4 times. And those are sacrifices that we made for the advancement of my career. And in addition to having a good, educational background, you got to be willing to make these sacrifices in order to see your career really, take, leaps forward. And those are things that we were willing to do that have helped us to get to where we are today.
Okay, so was the schooling difficult?
Was school difficult? I would say, there were times in which school was difficult, for sure. But ultimately, it's about school is about being able to maintain focus. The content itself can be challenging, yes, but if you have good enough teachers and professors, then they will help you navigate those challenges. But ultimately, you as a student have to stay focused on what it is you're trying to accomplish, because there are a lot of distractions, whether it be friends, whether it be family, whether it be fun things that you like to do. There are a lot of distractions that do make schooling difficult.
Can you describe the main daily goals or tasks for COs?
Sure. Because I work for a transportation company, we have drivers going all over the country. My number one goal every day is to see that all of my drivers get home safely. So safety is the most important thing, because it doesn't matter how many cars you deliver. It doesn't matter how much money you make. But if someone gets hurt or someone dies while they're working, then that's a really bad day. And so that's my number one responsibility, is to ensure that we're doing everything possible that everybody gets home safely. After that, it is getting with my team to see where we are not meeting our customers' expectations or not meeting our internal expectations. Maybe we're delivering something late. Maybe someone had a violation of some sort. But it's working with my team to help understand why we didn't meet our expectations, and then develop plans to ensure that we meet expectations in the future.
So, what is the budget and planning, and how do you handle it step by step?
Well, I won't bore you to go into every
No, it's okay.
step of
That's
the
what I
budgeting
asked.
process, but I will say this: from a budgeting standpoint and revenue standpoint, we will do close to $1 billion in revenue.
Ooh.
So it's I stay pretty busy, and we want to make sure that we profit as much as possible. Now, what we do from a budgeting standpoint is right around September or October, we'll begin looking at planning for our budgets for the following year. Because we are delivering cars, we review industry analysis to say how many cars are going to be made next year. What are our customers thinking about doing next year? What opportunities do we have to really understand how much can we continue to grow our business? And so we'll determine how much we want to grow our business based upon what the market dictates. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we got to determine what do we need to do, how many people do we need to hire, how many trucks do I need to buy, how many buildings do I need to build or rent in order for us to be able to successfully meet our expectations of bringing on all this new business. So that's what we'll do, and and obviously when it comes to preparing the budget, we got to think about how much money do our drivers need to make, how much money do our employees need to make, how much is it going to cost me to buy a truck, and so we think about all those things. We'll put those costs in, and that will help us understand, how we need to grow our revenue, how much we need to grow our revenue by, and how we want to manage our costs, keep our costs as low as possible.
How often do you travel, and how far?
I travel probably about a third of my time. I'd say I'll travel at least 1 to 2 weeks every month. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's going as short a distance as an hour away. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's 4 to 6 hours away. So it all depends on what the needs are. I'll give you an example. So I am home this week. Home is just outside of Detroit, Michigan. Last week I was in California for a week, and the week before that I was in Baltimore, Maryland for a week. And so we have 100 offices across the country, and so I travel to one of those places with some degree of regularity.
What are some places that you've gone because of the company?
Well, I will tell you this. Before, I have been in my current job for the last 4 years. Mm-hmm. And I've gone to some great places in those last 4 years. However, prior to that, I worked at UPS, United Parcel Service, mm-hmm. As an executive for UPS. And I will tell you probably 4 years ago, I'm sorry, it's about 6 years ago now, mm-hmm. I worked with the UPS International team. And so in a span of 14 months, I went to 12 countries.
Ooh, dang.
So my favorite, one of my favorites was Singapore. Mm-hmm. But I got to spend some time in Hong Kong, spent some time in South America, in Colombia. Where, by the way, my passport got stolen in Colombia, which is a whole nother story. I was in Nicaragua. I had armed guard in Nicaragua, so that was interesting. Spent time in Europe. I was in London, Ireland, Belgium, so Germany. So I've been to a lot of different places for work.
And what's the most difficult part of your job?
The most difficult part of the job, I'll say any of my jobs, is the amount of time it takes.
Yeah.
To be successful, and to reach the levels that I have reached, which I am extremely blessed to be able to do that. it takes a lot of time. And it's time that you're taking away from somewhere. There are only 24 hours in a day, and that means that more than likely you're taking time away from your family.
Yeah.
I remember when my oldest daughter was a senior in high school. During prom, I was in London, so I missed it.
Yeah.
When my second daughter was a senior in high school, I missed homecoming because I was in, I think I was in Canada maybe. And so the most difficult part is not giving your family the amount of time that they would like. Now, I will tell you this, just to be honest. You can rationalize some of that away and say, well, we're extremely blessed financially, and so my family is in a good place financially because of all the sacrifices we've made. But there's nothing worth missing. Yeah, there's no substitute for spending time with your family. So no amount of money can make up for the times that you lose.
That brings us on to our next question. What are the hours like?
I work 6 days a week. I try to make sure that I always take off on Saturday, so I don't work on Saturday. But so it's really 5 days. My day starts. So my day every morning starts at 4:30 in the morning. And that gives me time to exercise, pray, and just get ready for the day. I'd like to be in the office no later than 7 o'clock. I'd like to be in the office ideally by 6:30 in the morning. But so I'll get to the office between 6:30 and 7 in the morning. I don't take a lunch break, so I take my lunch. So I take a salad for lunch usually every day. So I don't take a lunch break. I just work until roughly about 6 o'clock in the evening. So you're looking at 11 hours.
Dang.
You do that Monday through Friday, and then you work about a half day on Sundays as well.
How long have you been working for your company?
My current company, I've been working there for 4 years. And like I said before that, I was at UPS for 22 years.
22?
22.
Wow. What is your favorite part about working there?
My favorite part about what I do?
Mm-hmm.
My favorite part about what I do is, being able to interact with the people, with all of our employees across the country. I think we have some really, really, really good people that want to do really good things, and just being able to help them achieve some of their goals. Those are the parts that are probably the best that I would say on a given day.
What's one challenge you regularly face in your job?
I'd say one of the biggest challenge that I face, I would say, is that the majority of our employees are drivers, and our drivers can make a lot of money. Our average driver makes over $100,000 a year, and so even though our drivers make a lot of money, and our drivers are very important, there are less and less drivers in the country today. Across the entire United States, there is a shortage of about 80,000 people to be truck drivers.
Wow.
And so on any given day, I'm trying to hire and keep hire new drivers and keep the drivers that I have, because they can go in a lot of different places to work. So that's my toughest part, is making sure that we have the right number of drivers on every day to meet our customers' expectations.
Yeah, I've been noticing that a lot of people, there's been drops in numbers of all jobs, really.
Yeah, and so why do you think that is?
I don't know. Maybe because people are, probably because COVID probably impacted it somewhat, but probably also because people are finding different things to do and different ways to make money than working.
I agree. Yep, I agree with you. And if you look at what's happened over the last, 3 years since COVID hit, there's not less people. So you can say, where are the people that to do these jobs? Many people retired. If they could retire early, many people chose to do that. But I think that one of the biggest things that we have is that a lot of people are doing their own thing. Everybody wants to get their own little side hustle. And so you have a lot of people that are doing DoorDash or Uber or Lyft. And they're doing that because they can make okay money, but they get to control their schedule. And that's what I think people really like. They like controlling their own schedule.
Me too. That's what I think too.
Yep.
Would you say the job is dangerous?
No, my job's not dangerous. I get to sit in an office all day, that's got heat in the wintertime and air conditioning in the summertime. So it's not too dangerous. I will say, though, that when I go and visit to some of our offices, I do have to be mindful of safety precautions and wear a safety vest because, you're out where trucks are going and things like that. And so if you're not careful, someone could get hurt. But usually my job's not too dangerous.
What about the truck drivers? Is it dangerous for them?
Oh, it's extremely. They have a very tough job. Statistically speaking, it's safer to fly in an airplane than it is to drive on the roads. And with these drivers, driving 6 days a week or 5 to 6 days a week, they increase their chances of having a crash. And so anytime there's a crash, there's a chance somebody might get hurt. And unfortunately, I've had situations in which I've had to call a driver's family member to tell them that they passed away. And that is, I would say, if you ask, let me go back and change my answer. You asked me what the hardest part about my job is. Mm-hmm. The hardest part about my job is when someone dies in a crash, having to call their wife or call their mother or call their children and tell them that they're not coming home. No school prepares you for that, and and so in doing that there is nothing more difficult that I will ever do than to have to make that phone call.
Does that happen frequently?
Fortunately, it does not happen frequently. But it has happened.
So, bringing us kind of back to COVID, did your company face any unique challenges during the COVID pandemic? And if you did, what were they, and how did you handle them?
Well, I would say this: the biggest challenge that we faced during COVID was that since we moved cars, all of the car manufacturers stopped making cars because their factories got shut down, and so that meant that I didn't have as much work for my drivers, and so that was very difficult because I got 1,500 drivers on the road. And I have to tell them that we don't have work for many of them. Fortunately, during that time, there were a lot of government programs to allow people to get unemployment and have money. And so that helped many of our employees to make ends meet while they, until the cars started being manufactured again. So that was a difficult time. And as a leader of the organization during that time, I took a pay cut and earned less money.
Dang.
Now, many of all of our leaders took pay cuts. And the higher you were in the organization, the larger the pay cut you took, because we believe that as leaders, we have to lead by example. And if our drivers can't make any money and our company needs, doesn't have as much money because of COVID, then we have to make those sacrifices as a leader, so that our people that aren't as high in the organization, we're not asking them to do something that we won't do ourselves. So as a personal philosophy and as a company, we both believe this, and that is, you should never ask anybody to do something that you yourself won't do. And so that's what we did. So that's how we got through COVID.
So what are some experiences or stories from the job, kind of like that one thing you mentioned about getting your passport stolen?
Some experience is from the job?
Or stories.
Or experiences or stories? Okay, so I will tell you this. Yes. So I was in Bogota, Colombia, and I'd left the airport after soon arriving and got to the hotel, and they asked me for my passport, and I only to find that I did not have my passport. That was a very difficult time, because as we tried to figure out what happened and realized that the passport had gotten stolen. So I wasn't sure how I was going to get home, but fortunately I was able to go to the U.S. Embassy in Colombia, and they issued me an emergency passport, so I was able to get home. That's always, so that was interesting. Another thing that I always find interesting is that, throughout my career, people have often been surprised at the leadership positions that I've had, throughout my career. As you can imagine, working in corporate America, there are not of African Americans in high levels, chief operating officer jobs.
Yeah.
And so that so that's always interesting. I always find those, I'll say, funny, if you will. I was in Hong Kong, and I walked in and introduced myself, and they said, "Well, we weren't expecting anybody to look like you."
Dang.
So that's that's interesting. So doing things like that, and always surprising others and showing them that African Americans can be successful in anything we put our minds to. And going to different cultures and being able to, I'll say, dispel myths that people have about African Americans, or to surprise people. I always love that, because you can see it on their faces. Mm-hmm. So those are just things that I remember.
So we have 3 more questions. Sorry, this is
I will tell
so long.
I will tell you this before you go to your last 3 questions. Mm-hmm. Is I also learned that when I was learned this when I was in China. I went to a bunch of restaurants where since I didn't speak Chinese, people had to order for me, so I had no idea what I was eating for dinners. Mm-hmm. So my trick is, when I travel internationally, I always order a Coke, because if you don't like what you're eating, you can always just chew it and then drink a Coke right afterwards, and the Coke flavor is all you taste. So that's my trick when I travel internationally, if I don't know what I'm eating.
So why did you want to work at this company and do this job?
That's a really good question. I wanted to work at this company because it gave me an opportunity to really be a part of a team setting the strategy for an organization. When you work for anywhere for a long time, you are executing on someone else's strategy. You're executing on someone else's vision. I wanted to work here because they gave me the opportunity to create that vision and create that strategy. And that way, what you create is your own, rather than always living somebody else's dream or executing on somebody else's plan. So the company gave me that opportunity to do that. Plus, I thought that being a chief operating officer would prepare me to be a chief, executive officer, to be a CEO, which is still my plan, still my goal, to be a CEO at whether it be at my current company or at another company. At some point in time, that's the goal.
How has this job affected or changed you? Has it made you a better person or see life differently since you've traveled and seen a whole bunch of things?
I'll say this, and I don't know if this is the answer to your question, but I'll answer it this way anyway. The things I have, the blessings that I've had as a result of my job, the blessing I've had, through my job, have all been great. But what they do more than anything else is that they amplify who you really are. So I don't know that it's really changed me, but it has, like I said, it's amplified who I really am. And I try to be generous. I try to be to follow, God's leading everywhere I go, and I do that through the lens of this job, and to be a leader and to serve the success of others, which is kind of my personal motto, is to serve the success of others. It's allowed me to be a positive influence on other people's lives. And I want for, people having interacted with me, I want them to be able to say that I help them, achieve the things that they want to do, and that they are better for having known me or interacted with me. So that's my goal on a daily basis, and that's what I try to do or try to accomplish through the job.
That's a question I like to ask at the end of every interview, because I like to see not only what people do but also how it's changed them. And so this is our very last question. Do you have any tips for others who want to become COOs or work as truck drivers?
I'll say this, for people that want to be a truck driver, it's a great job. People can make a lot of money, and you don't need to go to college and all this other stuff to do it. I will say, though, that to be a truck driver and to be a COO, the thing that they have in common, the thing that you have to do, is sacrifice. You have to be willing to sacrifice to get the things that you want. Now, that doesn't mean that you never get to spend time with your families or do fun things. But what it means is that there comes points in times which you have to make choices. And sometimes you have to make the choice to for the improvement or betterment of your career, instead of taking the easier path and just watching TV or doing other things. So you have to be willing to make sacrifices, and certainly the more as far as being a COO, the more educated you can be, great. But it really is about getting experiences and not being afraid to be wrong. So that's my advice.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. How'd you like your interview?
It was great. I'll have to have you on my podcast at some point in time, and we can we can put the shoe on the other foot. I get to ask you all the questions.
That would be amazing. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do.
All right. Thank you.
All right, dear. Not a problem. Take care. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.